Rev up your engines!
Well, it looks like the Chinese are trying to get even with us for banning the sales of their cars here in the United States, putting big tariffs and so they don't bring them in. Well, China now has canceled more shipments of U.S. wheat than ever. It's the wheat car war, I guess you might call it. The Chinese have canceled purchases of 264,000 metric tons of U.S. soft red winter wheat to China. It was the third time in a row they canceled stuff so far. It is a cancellation of 504,000 metric tons. So I guess they're saying, we're not going to buy your wheat if you're not going to buy our cars. I find it kind of interesting. I always thought, they were into rice there, not wheat. But I guess they like bread and cake, too. But the weird thing is, it kind of backfired on China because immediately the price of wheat went down a little, but then it went right back up and over what it was before. There's always these knee-jerk reaction, and you realize, hey, the world has a shortage of food. If the Chinese don't buy it, someone else will, right? You don't have to ride around in a car. You can walk, you can take a bicycle, you can take public transportation, whatever, right? But generally, you do have to eat if you want to survive. So maybe the Chinese are backfiring with their little planned banning of American wheat. Well, here we go yet again. Gas prices are rising. The spring is coming, right? Every year they come up with more excuses. The smarter one is, well, the price of oil is going up, so we have to raise the price of gasoline, right? I mean, it's hilarious because the stuff that you're buying now has been refined sitting there, right? This isn't what they paid for it when it was bought and refined, right? That was a lower price. But as soon as they get any excuse, they raise the price of gasoline. And they always do in the spring. And then they do this nonsense of, there's a higher demand, so we're going to raise the price. It's like, why? People are using it, right? Why should they have to pay more just because people want it? Capitalism used to be working the other way around, that if you mass produce more, you could make them cheaper and you could sell them for a lower price, right? In this case, it's just, we'll make any excuse to the oil companies to charge you whatever we can get away with. And they come up with the nuttiest excuses about it, right? When I went to California last year, I went to Death Valley, the gas was almost $7 a gallon there. But I went across the border to Nevada, which was a 35-minute drive, and gas was $3.15 a gallon. You figure that out, right? There's not that much difference between the two. And the tax differential between Nevada and California was, I don't know, maybe it was 15, 20 cents a gallon, but $7 here and $3.30 here. That doesn't explain anything. The only thing that explains it is outright greed, and if they can get away with it, they will. You're not going to be making your own gasoline, and they know it. Well, don't you wonder, like I do, why did that ship in the Atlantic burn down and sink? Well, now Volkswagen is being sued twice. Not just once, but twice. Twice the price, right? The Felicity Ace cargo ship, they say, sunk because they believe it was a Porsche that started on fire. Or should I say, a Porsche. As of this recording, 2024, the thing sank in 2022. Why the wait? Well, the wheels of justice move slow, right? Corporations suing other corporations, they're going to have a real hassle. Now, an estimated $115 million worth of high-end cars went down to the Davy Jones locker when that fire started, and goodbye ship, go buy cars on the ship. So they're suing Volkswagen because Volkswagen owns Porsche and Body. They own them all, right? Because said, you ruined our ship, you ruined all the money, the cars that were on it, even though it was their cars. Now, the people who own the ships, they're accusing Volkswagen of withholding information about the risks associated with transporting an electrified car. And I find this hilarious because after this happened, there is a giant ferry, I believe it's in Norway, and they are electric ferries. They work on batteries, right? But they will no longer accept electric cars or trucks to ride on a ferry because they're like, hey, we don't want it burning our ferry down. We can control our own ferry. We believe that's well made, but we don't trust these electric battery cars and trucks. So you can't ride on the ferry. You can't ride on the electric ferry with electric cars. Let's see what happens here, where the transportation company, which of course lost its ship, and Volkswagen, who lost all those cars to begin with, it's a real slap on both sides of the face. You lose the cars, now you got to pay for the ship. C'est la vie. We'll see what happens with Volkswagen and the sunk shipped because some electric car battery started on fire. Now, of course, they're going to argue forever. How did it start? Then I got to figure out why it started. But hey, obvious, it's the only thing that makes sense. You never see ships that have gasoline cars starting on fire, right? Steve Beat says, my front brakes drag and wear on the outside, but not the inside. The inside brake pads don't wear at all, but the outside ones wear out. Hell, okay, we got a problem in your caliper. The caliper squeeze it, right? Here's the thing. A lot of the cars have the inner brake pads where the caliper is. And the outer brake pads are just the whole giant brake assembly that slides back and forth. And those are the ones that are wearing out, the outside ones. So odds are your pins are probably corroded, where the caliper slides back and forth on these pins. If the pins are stuck, it won't affect the inside ones if you've got the piston going in and out on the inside, because that's going to go in and out anyways, even if the caliper's stuck. But if the caliper's stuck on those pins, the outside ones will drag, and then the outside pads will wear out. So you can take them apart. Sometimes the pins are they're corroded. You can buff them with a buffer, then put brake grease on them, put them back in, and they'll slide okay. Or you can just buy the whole assembly, rebuild cheaply enough for most cars at any discount auto parts store, and then you'll get new pins and everything and just put the whole thing on. That happens all the time to those things. Well, as we all know, they're not going to make the Apple car. They kind of screwed up that, lost like over $10 billion. Well, it wasn't even going to be a car anyways. It was going to be, check it out, a minivan, an ugly looking minivan. And of course, what were they doing? They're such cliche mongers at Apple. I guess they're all old ex-hippies or sons and daughters of hippies, because they kind of based it on the old Volkswagen microbus, right? They canceled the whole thing. And interesting enough, Carlos Ghosn, that crazy guy that used to run Nissan, that hid in the box or something and snuck himself from Japan to Lebanon to hide because Japanese were taking him to court and wanted to put him in jail for fraud, right? He said why, and I got to agree with the guy. He said it's because they couldn't make the money they thought they were going to make. Now, let's face the fact. Apple overcharges for all the crap that they make, right? And they get people to believe it. The Apple God. They all believe in the Apple God. They got their Apple watches, their Apple phones, Apple, right? It's kind of a religion with these people. And they've suckered them into overpaying for little things. Making a car, they're rather large things, right? And as Carlos Ghosn said, they had no idea what they're doing. They tried to cut a deal with Mercedes. They tried to cut a deal with a bunch of other companies to make the cars for it. And none of it came to fruition. So after blowing over $10 billion, they decided, we're not going to make a car, right? That shows you what kind of money this company has to waste. They can blow that kind of money, and they're still rolling along as a company, right? And then the cliche of cliches, they were going to make a minivan. Like, the world needs another minivan, right? There's enough of them out there already. And one that kind of looks like a modernized version of a Volkswagen microbus, making it even more cliche. I'm glad they're not making the stupid thing. Although, it would have been hilarious if they did make them and lost their shirts and went bankrupt. That would have been even funnier. I see these little trailers, teardrop trailers, right? This one is called What a Pod. I had a whole article on it, showed you all the cool things it had. They called it the most optional teardrop in the world, and how it was well made and la la. Now these are just those little teardrop trailers, right? Little tiny things, right? Originally they didn't cost all that much. Well, guess what? If you want a loaded one of these, starts at $28,980. That is not cheap. They're little trailers. You know, it kind of amazes me. You know, they think people are full of money, endless amounts of money. I mean, yeah, it's a cute idea. You get a little trailer, you go camping, blah, 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 right? For $28,900, you can stay in the nicest hotels and motels for years, right? And you wouldn't be towing this thing behind you. It's going to wear your vehicle out. You're going to get worse gas mileage, right? I guess these people think that there's just an unlimited amount of money out there of people who will buy these things at whatever ridiculous price they come up with. I don't even want to pay $29,000 for a car. Nevertheless, a little tiny teardrop trailer you can put behind it. Doesn't have a motor or anything, you know? I mean, it really makes me wonder where these people's mindsets are. What do they think their market is? How many ultra-rich people want to be pulling a teardrop trailer? When I was a kid, people had them because they cost nothing, and they were cute, and you could go out camping in them, you know, it didn't really cost all that much money. For that kind of money, I mean, I just don't understand it. I really don't understand it. And for what I've seen, trailers, RVs, they're just backing up in the United States. Every time I travel around, I see the places they're just loaded with them. Nobody's buying the things. And these guys tout really high quality. Well, they got to tout high quality because everybody who knows the business now knows that the trailers and RVs are made like crap. right? They've had so many problems with getting labor to build them. They got to try to build them cheap so they can make a profit, right? And they're not done on some mass production line like automobiles where they're making millions of them, right? So it's a real problem getting them built quality. So, of course, people all brag, now this is a high quality one. Hey, well, I don't care how quality it is. If the thing's close to $30,000, I'm not going to be buying one. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.